All right, this is just going to be a quick overview of Google Meet. So the main page, meet.google.com, is what we'll launch from eventually. But I just want to mention also that inside of your Gmail, there is the ability to start a meeting right from here. This is not a way you want to start with kids. This is really to connect to adults. Remember, these tools are meant for business, and we're just using them in education. So if you do start a meeting this way, um, it's it can work, and we'll explain it a little bit. If you don't want the meet and the chat over here, the chat's a really nice way to communicate. So I would suggest having that on and collaborate with others. A lot of us at the district use chat, but in the settings, if you do go into the settings, see all settings, you can get into the chat and meet area, and you can turn off that meet piece so you don't have this taking up space on your left hand side if you'd like to. All right, so that is a way to start a meeting, and I'll show you exactly what that does once we keep moving on. The preferred way is obviously to do it through Google Classroom, and we'll talk about that too as well. Inside of Calendar is another way to create a meeting. So if I click on an event here, I can title it and add a Google Meet conference. Just realize that this link is available to anyone who can find that link. If you do add guests, obviously they can find it in their calendar. But if you do share that link out, anyone can join that meet and be in that meet at any time, because the idea here is it's this meeting, it's an event for Google Calendar. So say if you can't make a meeting, maybe you get a flat tire. People don't want to be waiting for the owner of the meet to be able to get into that. So anyone who's part of the event would be able to click on that meet and get into it. So again, if you were inviting students through a Google Calendar and adding a Google Meet that way, students would be able to get in the conference without the video conference without you being in attendance. So again, this isn't the way you want to work with your students, but working with adults, it's exactly what you want to be doing. Google Classroom has Google Meet integrated into it, and this is the preferred method. And I'll explain how this works too as well. So you want to get into a Google Classroom. In the front of it, it'll say generate a Meet link. You can click to start that for students. And then the other way, if you understand the settings gear of Google Classroom, once you get into the Google Classroom settings, down below here is where you can turn on and generate the Meet to as well and make it visible to students or not. So if you want to generate the meeting link, you can turn that off, and then it wouldn't be on that main page for students to see. It would be available for you to join at any moment. But basically, when you turn it on, now it's visible to students. Students cannot get in there until you launch it, because what it's doing is dynamically creating that Meet link when you click on it. Students cannot create Google Meets. So if they click on the link and the meeting doesn't exist, they can't create it. So again, it's called a nickname meet, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But basically, this does a random lookup of some characters, and it generates a Google Meet link for you, because you're able to create meets. So when a kid clicks on it, it won't work unless you already has created that meeting link for them. So once you do save it, again, it's ready for your students to join once you do join on it. And again, I'll explain that in a little bit more detail, but basically they can't get in yet. So if I do go ahead to meet.google.com, this uses the same method that Google Classroom uses. So if I hit join or start a meeting, it'll ask you to create a name, a nickname, they call them. So by doing a nickname, you could call it Mr. McCaffrey, with a date. It has to be kind of unique, obviously. But basically, once you hit continue, and you could keep using the same one over and over, because it generates a new one each time randomly. So it's not a really big deal. So when I hit continue now, it'll take me into that room, and it actually generated the code that Google Meets all work by. So this 9-digit code up here, that's how they stay unique between all different meet rooms, and it belongs to you. So no one can join that in until you go join in, unless it's a teacher, but a student wouldn't be able to join in. So for example, if I'm flipping over here and I'm logged in as a student in this particular case, I can hit use a meeting code. Notice it says you can't create a meet. So if I do say, hey, use that test Mac meeting code, and I hit continue, just in incognito mode, so I have to allow camera. But basically what this says, once this gets out of my way, it says the meeting hasn't started yet. So students aren't able to enter in. And that's the same thing that would happen if I were to go to that Google Classroom as a student. I'm just going to copy this meeting link that's on Pretend My Google Classroom. So as a teacher, when I clicked on it, it'll give me a new random code And then if a student got that code somehow and tried to join that meeting, again, that meeting hasn't started yet, so they can't get into it. So basically, the way Google Classroom is working is the same way that meet.google.com is working. So if I do go to meet.google.com, I create a meeting with a name. It won't allow students in until you join. So now that I've joined as the teacher, it gives me my joining information. So again, now I can go for a student. I can say, hey, go to Google Meet, or I can send that meeting code. Again, they would just click on Google Classroom. But just to show you now that the kid uses that, it'll actually let them join in too as well. Just mute myself here. So I'm joining in as a student. Mute myself over here. Control D and Control E are the shortcuts to turn off camera and video or audio. So here is we have the two participants. We have elementary test, the student, that's me in this case when I'm in this incognito black window. And then over here, I'm in the white window with me here and the elementary test student both in there. I do have the controls then as the teacher to kick them out. If I flick over to the student, maybe I'll just do some of this. So student view on the right, teacher view on the left. Notice that as the student, I cannot remove anybody. I can't unmute anybody. So again, the teacher can remove anyone from a Meet when you create it through Google Meet. So what I'm going to do is just join in with a couple other accounts. Actually, you can join in as a Google Meet in the same account several times. So I'm joining in with my account here. Give me a second. So you can see I just entered in again, and then I have another test account over here. All right, so I'm actually joining with my personal account. So I want to show you that since I'm outside of Wilson School District, it asks me to join. That may happen when parents join with a different Google account, or a student joins logged into a parent account or something like that too as well. So normally it's not someone trying to hack in, but that's a way to make sure that anyone outside of Wilson School District has to be admitted into it. So as you can see now, we have 5 people in here. I'll actually drop out the other McCaffrey so it's not too confusing. Well, I can't. There we go. So basically, we have 5 people in here in the student view and the teacher view. I'm just going to minimize the student view from now because I'm going to talk about breakout rooms. So there is some extensions available. Google's coming out with breakout rooms in October, which should be a lot easier to manipulate than what I'm about to show you, but at least this does work. So it is a workaround. You need 2 extensions installed. Grid View, I'll put the link in this email with the screencast. It does say warning. Don't worry about that warning. The other version of this doesn't work well. So this one does work well. But you need that installed for this attendance and slash breakout room to actually work. So in here, I can take attendance real quickly. I can just hit refresh and it pulls in all the people that are in this meet if I'd like to, and I can copy that list and dump it somewhere too as well. A randomized person just pulls out a person's name, so it's kind of like calling on somebody randomly if you'd like to. So this attendance extension, again, I'll share it with you. You can also create class lists, so you can create a pre-mated list. I was working with some teachers the other day, so I pretend to make a period 1 list, so I can go into this list and delete them all if I'd like to. I can clean that comparison list another way. I can copy the list that's over here if I'd like and paste them in here. And then I could create another period. I could say period 2 if I'd like to and save list. And now basically I have 2 different periods. So what I can do is hit compare. And what that does is put check marks in there. I can clean that comparison list. So pretend I put in the wrong period, for example, and I hit compare here. Obviously, they're not in attendance here. Again, you can copy this. You can copy for chat too to send it to your attendees to show them that they are here if you'd like to. So again, I could just clean that list, pick out period 2 since that's the actual right one, and I can compare, copy that for the chat, and paste that in there, and I can show who was in attendance basically. So if I go back into that, oops, that's the wrong one. They look alike. Next to it here, I have that attendance piece here. Again, I can refresh that at any time, so I can continue to take attendance at any moment. And then I can play around with creating lists that I can save later to compare. And then copy and paste out if I'd like to. There are some other attendance ones out there that dump the stuff right to a spreadsheet. So if you're more interested in something that dumps the attendance to a spreadsheet, that might be more valuable to you, depending upon what your goals are here. But the other piece that this does include, that the other attendance extension does not include, is has a group generator. So when you click that, I'm going to hide the comparison list here, or show the comparison hide. So these just toggle out more windows for you. So I want to reset the meet links. Again, this was from the last time I was there, so I can just use that comparison list. And I can say, okay, I want, I don't know, we'll say 3 groups, and generate groups. And then basically took 2 of the people, because there's only 5 in here, and put them in group 1 person in group 2, and 1 person in group 3. You can generate as many groups as you want to. Just remember, your computer probably is only good with 3 or 4 meet links open. Unless you have a stronger computer, you can maybe do up to 7 or 8 meet links to be hopping in and out of. But basically what you're going to do is hop in one, check in with students, close it, and then get into the next one. Just otherwise your computer's not going to be able to handle that well. Again, Google for Enterprise Edition, which will be coming out with breakout rooms in October, will be a lot more seamless than this. But it is pretty handy to do too as well, because once you do that, you can copy those groups and then throw them in the chat, and then everyone in the class knows what group they're in. And then again, I can go back into that extension and I can say, okay, copy meet links, and I can say, okay, kids, here are the links for each group, and then the kids need to click on their specific group. Obviously, some students will click on the wrong link. And then that's, just part of learning. And then they'd have to go back into a different meet. A lot of times what teachers do then is have students who do click into that other meet. I just control clicked it to open into another window, and I can join that meeting too as well. So what I suggest is I'd open maybe 1 or 2 of these so they load up at the same time. Mute your camera, or excuse me, audio and camera, and then basically hit join now. And then as a student, I'm just going to go in here as a student on another device. You can see that a student just joined me too as well in that breakout room. It was secondary to student that I jumped in here with too as well. So these are your 3 links that you would hop into and manage. What we suggest students do is leave this main room open. So if they get lost, they can just come back here and talk to you, because you might be hopping into another group and not realize them. The other piece of this then is, if you are helping a student in the main room and you're talking, everybody else in their breakout rooms would be hearing it too as well. So another little trick that students can do, one extension you can use is mute this tab, and basically mutes the tab for you, and that way they won't hear it from this tab. Done is just use the Meet from Google Classroom as your main link all the time. So if students do get lost, they just need to go back to Google Classroom to get back to the main link. And that way they can just close out of the main meeting and work in the break room or breakout room until a certain time. And then you can either jump in that breakout room and say, hey, okay, I need you guys back in the main room, and then just put the main link in the chat of that breakout room, so they can get back to the main room and close that breakout room. So really all this extension is doing the dirty work for you, because you technically could just go to meet.google.com and create a whole bunch of meeting links yourself and then like link them into a slide deck. Like group one, here's your breakout room. Group two, here's your breakout room. Group three. So you could create all your group meets or your breakout rooms before you even start and link them into a slide deck. And that's how I generally do it in professional development. So that's really what that extension's doing. It's just going and creating all those meet links for you, and then also randomizing the students into their particular groups too as well. Again, by clicking on here, you can get into the breakout rooms, or you can copy those meet links. Don't reset the meet links, because if kids are already in a breakout room and then you reset the meet links and you don't have the right meet links, so just make sure you copy and paste it in the chat, and then save that information. So again, the other way is to create your own by just create a meeting, call it like Group A, and then continue, create and copy that link, dump it into a slide deck and link it for Group A, create Group B, and then again, students won't be able to join those until you click and enter them. Think of Google Meets as like a locked room, and you have to let students in by being in the room. If you're not in the room, the outside of the door is locked, so they can't get in. If you're the last one in a meeting, so if you say, okay, class is over, kids, and you can kick kids out if you'd like to. When you're the last one in a meeting and then you close the meet, you'll see this in a moment. Just remove everybody from the meeting. So right now, if I hop over to that student here, it says someone is removed from the meeting. If I knew that meet code again, if I remember it, test Mac. Since I'm still in the meeting, it's going to allow me to join this meeting. It'll show you in a moment. Camera starting, and it says join now. Okay. But if I don't, if I use a meeting code again and I don't join quite yet, so as a teacher, I kicked everybody out and I leave the call. And then if a student tries to join in, it says the meeting has already ended. So students cannot get back into that meeting. That's exactly how Google Classroom's meetings work. You just have to be the last one in the meeting. So again, basically Google Classroom's lookup feature here is just using that idea of a nickname meeting that is being created by Google Meet. Again, it allows you to get in there before, if you're not in there, they can't get in there until you get in there. And then once everyone's out and you leave the meeting, they can't get back in. The extensions, a part of that Google meeting, can help you with managing breakout rooms, possibly, if you'd like to. Again, you can build them yourself too as well. Hopefully that's helpful. I know that's a lot, but really, hopefully, I can't wait till October till the actual breakout rooms from Google Meet are created, because it'll all be just inside of Google Meet, where you can just assign kids to rooms and pulling them back in and all that type of stuff too as well. So this is just a temporary fix, and hopefully you're having a good day, and hopefully this helps you out with Google Meet. Thanks. Bye.